The city streets were busy that afternoon, filled with people rushing from one place to another, carrying shopping bags, holding coffee cups, or talking loudly on their phones. The sunlight shone brightly on the polished glass windows of the shops, reflecting the names of high-end brands that lined the avenue. Among the bustling crowd, a homeless woman sat quietly on the edge of the sidewalk, her worn-out clothes slightly patched, and a small cardboard sign resting beside her. Her eyes followed the passers-by with quiet curiosity, but she said nothing, simply watching life move around her. She had been there for months, finding comfort in the routines of the streets. Every day was a challenge, but she had learned to navigate the world with caution and dignity. People often ignored her. Some gave coins, a few smiled, and some even mocked her. She had become used to the range of human reactions, never letting anyone's cruelty shake her inner calm. She kept a small bag of belongings close, a blanket folded neatly under it, and an old thermos that carried lukewarm tea. That afternoon, a woman in her 30s walked down the street, her heels clicking against the pavement. She wore a designer dress, delicate jewelry, and sunglasses that hid her eyes but added to her air of authority. She was well known in social circles for her elegance and sharp tongue, and she carried herself with a confidence that bordered on arrogance. As she moved through the crowd, her eyes landed on the homeless woman sitting quietly on the corner. A smile curved her lips. Not a kind one, but one that carried a hint of amusement at someone she thought was beneath her. She slowed down, looking at the woman with a sense of superiority, as if inspecting a curiosity in a museum. The homeless woman noticed her gaze but did not flinch. She straightened her back slightly, keeping her composure, and her eyes met the rich woman's without fear or resentment. The rich lady leaned closer, speaking loudly enough for nearby pedestrians to hear. Her voice was sharp, tinged with mockery. "Look at you sitting here, dirty and poor. Is this the best you can do?" She laughed softly, turning her head slightly, as if showing the scene to others. The crowd began to notice, some slowing down, their expressions a mix of curiosity and discomfort. She was clearly trying to make a spectacle out of the woman, enjoying the sense of control her wealth gave her. The homeless woman did not respond immediately. She remained calm, her hands folded gently in her lap. People began to whisper among themselves, sensing the tension. Some felt sorry for the woman on the ground, while others were drawn into the drama of the moment. The rich lady continued, her tone dripping with condescension. "I wonder how you survive like this. Can't you do something better with your life?" She waved a hand dismissively, emphasizing the words with an air of finality. The homeless woman finally spoke, her voice soft but steady. "I survive each day the best I can, ma'am. I have no one to rely on, but I try to make the most of what I have." Her words were simple, honest, and calm. They carried no anger, no bitterness, just quiet truth. A few people nearby paused, surprised by her dignity. It was clear she was not seeking pity or attention, just acknowledging reality with quiet strength. The rich lady raised an eyebrow, slightly irritated that her attempt at humiliation was not having the effect she expected. She reached into her designer handbag and pulled out a crumpled dollar bill, holding it up as if it were a grand gesture of charity. "Here, maybe this will help you survive another day," she said with a smirk, letting the note drop into the woman's outstretched hand. The sound of the bill hitting the pavement was loud in the sudden silence. The gesture was meant to humiliate, to show power, and to entertain herself. The homeless woman looked down at the dollar, then back up at the rich lady. She smiled faintly, a small gesture of kindness rather than shame. "Thank you," she said simply, her tone calm and genuine. Her words had no sarcasm, no mockery, just plain gratitude. The rich lady blinked, momentarily caught off guard. She had expected surprise, embarrassment, or even anger, but not quiet dignity and respect. The crowd around them began to murmur softly. Some were impressed by the woman's composure, others felt the rich lady's behavior was unnecessarily cruel. There was a subtle shift in the atmosphere, a sense that the tables were not as clear-cut as they had seemed at first. The rich lady straightened, a flicker of annoyance crossing her face. She had thought this would be entertaining, a way to reinforce her own sense of superiority, but instead she felt a hint of discomfort. For a moment, the world seemed to slow down. The rich lady looked at the homeless woman, really looked at her, and noticed the subtle strength in her posture, the calm in her eyes, the quiet confidence that came from facing life without fear. She felt a strange mix of emotions, surprise, irritation, and something she could not name. It was unsettling to see someone so seemingly powerless carry herself with such poise. The homeless woman, sensing the tension, did not react further. She kept her gaze gentle and steady, as if silently conveying that no matter what others thought, she would not be broken by words or gestures meant to harm her. She sipped from her thermos, letting the moment pass with grace. The crowd shifted slightly, some turning away, some lingering, feeling a mix of admiration and curiosity. The rich lady finally spoke again, this time with a quieter, almost puzzled tone. You're not upset?" she asked, genuinely unsure. The homeless woman shook her head, her expression calm. "I have learned that anger and resentment only weigh the heart. I cannot control what others do, but I can control how I respond. I choose peace," she replied simply, her words carrying a weight that surprised even herself in their quiet power. The rich lady looked down at her shoes, feeling an unfamiliar sense of self-awareness. She had expected the scene to reinforce her sense of importance, but instead, she felt exposed. The truth in the woman's words was undeniable. The simplicity of her dignity contrasted sharply with the complexity and sometimes emptiness of wealth and social status. It was a moment that shook her, though she did not fully understand why. The homeless woman gently gathered her few belongings, one of her blanket and placing it neatly in her bag. She stood slowly, brushing the dust off her clothes. "Thank you for your contribution," she said quietly, a hint of a smile playing on her lips. The words were calm, almost formal, but carried no trace of bitterness. It was a polite acknowledgement, a way to maintain her dignity while letting the rich lady confront her own sense of self. The rich lady watched her go, speechless. The crowd dispersed slowly, some whispering about what they had witnessed. The woman's calm and dignity had left an impression, even on those who had initially laughed or ignored her. The rich lady turned away, her mind unusually quiet, filled with questions she had never asked herself before. She walked down the street, her heels clicking, but the sound felt different now, heavy with reflection. She realized that wealth and status could not command respect in the way she had believed, and that true power sometimes came from the simplest of human qualities: strength, kindness, and grace. The homeless woman continued her walk down the street, blending back into the rhythm of the city. She knew life would continue to be challenging, but moments like these reminded her of her own strength and the quiet dignity she carried with her every day. The sun was still shining, the streets still busy, and life moved forward as it always did. With lessons hidden in the simplest of encounters, the streets had begun to cool as the afternoon sun started its slow descent, painting the city in a warm golden light. The rich lady walked along the boulevard, her mind restless and unusually quiet. Normally, she would have brushed off the encounter with the homeless woman as insignificant, just another passing moment. But today, something lingered. The calmness and dignity of that woman had made her pause, and the simplicity of her strength gnawed at the edges of her pride. She kept replaying the scene, the quiet words of gratitude, the gentle smile, the polite acknowledgement that had left her without a single sharp retort. Meanwhile, the homeless woman had moved a few blocks down. Finding a quieter corner near a small park, she unfolded her blanket, sitting down to rest for a few minutes. Her day had been long, and her body ached from the constant movement required to survive on the streets. But there was satisfaction in knowing she had carried herself with integrity in the face of cruelty. She had learned that dignity was not something given by wealth or power. It was something cultivated within, something no one could take from her. People continued to pass, some noticing her, some not. Occasionally, someone would stop and offer a smile or a few coins, but mostly they moved past without a second thought. She accepted what she needed without expectation, knowing that human nature was varied and unpredictable. Some were kind, some indifferent, and some cruel. And in all of it, she kept her calm, knowing that her worth was not measured by the reactions of strangers. Back on the boulevard, The rich lady found herself pausing outside a high-end boutique. She pretended to browse, her hands lingering on the displays, but her mind was elsewhere. She felt a mixture of discomfort and curiosity. Why had a brief encounter unsettled her so much? She had power, money, and influence, yet she felt small, exposed, and a little ashamed. The homeless woman had not shouted, cried, or begged. She had simply existed with calm dignity, unaffected by the rich lady's scorn. It was something she had never truly encountered before. As she lingered, she noticed the people around her, their subtle glances, the whispered comments. Some were impressed by her style and poise. But there was also a sense that those who had seen the street corner interaction might be judging her, questioning the character beneath the wealth. The rich lady's thoughts raced. She realized that her laughter, her intended mockery, might have revealed more about her than she liked. She had wanted to dominate, to display her superiority, but instead, she had been shown the quiet power of true character. Meanwhile, the homeless woman observed the small park around her. A young man was trying to lift a bicycle that had fallen into the bushes. Without hesitation, she stood up, walking over and helping him right it. She adjusted the chain, ensured the wheel was spinning freely, and handed the bicycle back with a gentle smile. The young man thanked her profusely, surprised at her willingness to help, and walked away with a renewed sense of goodwill. Small acts of kindness like this were part of her daily life. They required no grand gestures, no attention, only patience, awareness, and a willingness to care even when her own life was difficult. At the same time, a mother with a small child passed nearby. The child had dropped a stuffed toy into a puddle, and the mother was too distracted to retrieve it. The homeless woman noticed immediately. She carefully waded to the toy, cleaned it gently with a handkerchief, and handed it back to the child. The child smiled brightly, and the mother's eyes filled with gratitude. The homeless woman only nodded softly, a quiet acknowledgement, before sitting back down on her blanket. These moments, though small, reinforced her belief that her purpose was not measured in material wealth, but in the kindness she could offer, even from her humble position. The rich lady, meanwhile, could not shake the image of the woman's calm face, her soft yet confident manner. She thought about the contrast between their lives. Wealth, influence, and luxury had brought her comfort, but also arrogance and judgment. Power had given her control over others, but not over the truth she had faced that afternoon. The homeless woman's simple grace had cut through the layers of pretense and social expectation, leaving her feeling unsettled and vulnerable in a way she was not accustomed to. Curiosity began to gnaw at her. She felt an unspoken need to understand the woman she had tried to humiliate. She wondered about her story, her struggles, and the resilience that had allowed her to maintain dignity in the face of scorn. The thought was uncomfortable but compelling. She realized that she had never truly observed someone like this with honesty before. Usually, the world of the street was invisible, something to be dismissed or ignored. Today, it demanded attention, reflection, and an awkward self-awareness that she did not like. The homeless woman noticed a man drop his wallet while hurrying down the path. Without hesitation, she picked it up and ran after him. She returned it with a gentle nod, refusing any reward or acknowledgement beyond a polite thank you. The man left in a rush, but a passerby who had observed the act smiled in admiration. These were the small moments that built respect and trust in the human spirit. Moments that required no money, no influence, only awareness and empathy. Back in her apartment, the rich lady sat by the window. Staring out at the city lights beginning to flicker on, her mind was full of images and reflections. She replayed the encounter again and again, examining her own reactions, her intentions, and the unexpected humility she had felt. She thought about the woman's actions, her calm response, and the kindness she had witnessed. There was a quiet power in that woman that she could not control or diminish, strength that did not come from status, money, or social influence. It was inherent, undeniable, and humbling. The rich lady began to feel a subtle shift inside her. The arrogance and superiority she had carried like armor seemed lighter, almost fragile. She realized that mockery and judgment revealed more about the one who wielded them than the one who received them. She felt an unfamiliar desire to understand, to reflect, and perhaps even to change. The city continued around her, full of noise, lights, and movement, but her thoughts were inward, quietly wrestling with a sense of inadequacy and revelation she had never known. The homeless woman, as night approached, found a sheltered spot under a small awning. She prepared for a night that would be cold, as it often was, but she faced it with the same quiet strength and resilience. She knew the city was harsh, and life could be unforgiving. But she also knew that her dignity and compassion would carry her through. The rich lady's shadowed reflection in her mind was just another challenge. Another mirror showing what power could not buy: grace, humility, and the strength of character. In the evening, as the streets quieted and the lights shone brighter, the rich lady thought about returning to the spot where the homeless woman had sat. She debated whether it was curiosity, guilt, or genuine concern that drew her. But something inside compelled her to observe, to see again the quiet strength she had encountered. She walked slowly through the streets, eyes scanning, heart tight with an unfamiliar tension, aware that this was no ordinary curiosity. She was searching for something she had not recognized in herself: the homeless woman. Meanwhile, closed her eyes for a brief rest, feeling the cool breeze against her face. She reflected on the day, the small moments of kindness, the people she had helped, and the dignity she had maintained despite mockery. She did not know that her actions had left an impression on someone powerful. But she continued to live with grace, unaffected by recognition or lack of it. Her life was simple, yes, but full of a quiet richness that no amount of money could buy. As the night deepened, the city lights twinkled like distant stars. The rich lady walked home slowly, her mind restless and her heart strangely heavy. She realized she had been confronted by a truth she could not ignore. Wealth and status could not command respect or integrity. True power lay in the choices people made, the kindness they offered, and the strength with which they faced life's hardships. She felt a deep sense of humility, a first taste of awareness that her life might be measured in ways she had never considered. The homeless woman prepared her small space for sleep. Folding her blanket with care and setting aside her belongings, she lay down, feeling the exhaustion in her body, but also a sense of peace in her heart. She had faced the world today with dignity and compassion. In doing so, had reminded herself of the strength she carried. She did not know the impact she had left on the rich lady, nor did she need to. Her life was not about recognition or reward, but about living with quiet integrity and compassion. Every single day. The next morning, the city woke to the usual hum of activity. Street vendors called out their wares, cars honked in the distance, and people hurried to work or to meet friends, their faces often absorbed in their own world. The homeless woman stirred, stretching her tired body as the first light of day illuminated the streets. She had slept fitfully, but her spirit remained intact. Each day brought uncertainty, but it also offered opportunities to observe, to help, and to live with dignity. She packed her belongings, folded her blanket, and stepped carefully into the busy street, ready to face another day. A few blocks away, the rich lady had already begun her morning routine. She looked out from her high-rise apartment, watching the city below. Her thoughts drifted back to the previous day, to the woman who had confronted her arrogance without a single harsh word. The memory was vivid and disturbing in its simplicity. She had expected anger, confusion, or desperation. Instead, she had witnessed calm, composed strength that she could not understand, much less challenge. The thought gnawed at her, creating an unease she could not shake as the morning wore on. Both women moved through the city, unaware at first of each other. The homeless woman navigated through narrow streets and crowded markets, keeping her head down, yet observing the small details around her. She noticed a man struggling to carry a large bag of groceries, wobbling under the weight. Without hesitation, she approached him and offered her help. Together they managed to bring the bag to his car. He thanked her warmly, surprised at her willingness to assist a stranger without asking for anything in return. She smiled faintly, a quiet acknowledgement, and went on her way. The rich lady, meanwhile, found herself walking through the same streets. She had dressed casually, hoping to blend in and perhaps see the woman again. The idea that she could learn something from someone so different, someone society deemed inferior, was both unsettling and compelling. She observed the people around her, noting their expressions, their actions, and the subtle ways they interacted. Yet her mind kept returning to the homeless woman, replaying the interaction like a loop she could not escape. As fate would have it, the homeless woman stopped near a small cafe where an elderly man had dropped his wallet. She saw the entire incident, quickly picked up the wallet, and ran after him to return it. The man was visibly shaken and grateful, thanking her repeatedly. Her smile was gentle, her presence calming. People who had witnessed the act whispered among themselves, admiration evident in their voices. Small acts of integrity and kindness were powerful, even unnoticed by the wider world. She embodied this quietly, yet unmistakably. The rich lady noticed the commotion from across the street. Curious, she approached, weaving through the crowd, and saw the woman she had tried to humiliate now being acknowledged for her generosity. Her heart sank slightly. She realized that this was more than chance. The homeless woman was consistently showing compassion and dignity despite her circumstances. The rich lady felt a pang of guilt mixed with awe. She could not control this woman's actions, nor could she diminish the respect people naturally gave her. Even in simple interactions, as the morning progressed, the homeless woman continued on her path, helping a child who had lost their way, giving directions to a lost tourist, and even stopping to assist a street artist who had dropped his supplies. Each act was small, unnoticed by most, yet significant in its impact. The rich lady followed at a discreet distance, watching silently, her emotions a mixture of embarrassment, curiosity, and admiration. She had expected humiliation, but what she saw now was strength, kindness, and influence in its purest form. The kind that did not rely on money or status. The city seemed to pulse with life around them. Each person busy in their own world, yet connected in small, meaningful ways. The homeless woman's actions created ripples of goodwill, small but tangible, affecting the lives of those she encountered. The rich lady's perception of power and influence began to shift. She realized that her wealth had allowed her to command attention and manipulate circumstances. But it could not replicate or diminish the inherent value of someone's character. True influence came from empathy, integrity, and quiet resilience, qualities that the homeless woman displayed effortlessly. By midday, the rich lady found herself outside a small community center. She noticed the homeless woman entering the building to offer assistance, helping to distribute food and supplies to those in need. She moved with grace and purpose, her interactions marked by kindness and patience. Volunteers and recipients alike treated her with respect, not out of fear or obligation, but because her actions reflected a genuine concern for others. The rich lady watched, realizing that she had never seen influence expressed in such a raw, authentic form. Curiosity overcame hesitation, and the rich lady approached the homeless woman cautiously. The woman looked up, her eyes calm, acknowledging the rich lady without surprise or judgment. The rich lady felt the weight of the previous encounter pressing down on her. Words faltered, and she struggled to find the right approach. "I saw what you did," she said finally, her voice unsteady. The homeless woman smiled faintly, encouraging her to continue without expectation or pressure. The rich lady admitted in fragmented sentences that she had tried to humiliate her the previous day and that she was struggling to understand how she remained so calm and composed. The homeless woman listened quietly, her demeanor patient and non-judgmental. She offered no scolding, only a gentle acknowledgement. "Life is full of challenges," she said simply. "Anger and resentment do not make them easier. Peace of mind and kindness toward others do." Her words were clear, yet profound, resonating deeply with the rich lady. For the first time, the rich lady felt the weight of her own arrogance. She realized that her laughter, her smirk, and her condescending tone had reflected insecurity and a desire to assert control rather than true confidence or wisdom. Watching the homeless woman handle each situation with grace forced her to reflect on her own actions, its motivations, and the emptiness that sometimes accompanied her wealth. She had power, but she had lacked purpose. She had influence. She had not used it to inspire or uplift. As they walked together briefly through the courtyard of the community center, the rich lady observed the homeless woman interact with everyone around her. She helped organize supplies, encouraged children to share their stories, and comforted those who were struggling. Her presence radiated calm authority, not through dominance, but through empathy, patience, and quiet strength. The rich lady realized that this was a form of leadership she had never truly experienced or understood. Throughout the day, small events continued to unfold that reinforced the rich lady's growing awareness. She witnessed the homeless woman step in to prevent an argument between two volunteers, gently mediating with words that were soft but firm. She saw her assist a street musician whose instrument had broken, helping him improvise so he could continue performing. Each act was a testament to her resilience and her capacity for care, demonstrating a depth of character that the rich lady had never encountered in her privileged circles. By late afternoon, the rich lady found herself exhausted not from physical activity, but from the emotional weight of observation and reflection. She had expected to see weakness, desperation, or fear, but instead, she had seen unwavering dignity, consistent compassion, and a capacity for influence that transcended material wealth. She began to understand that her previous judgments had been shallow, based on appearances and social status rather than the essence of a person's character. The homeless woman, sensing that her day was winding down, prepared to leave the community center. She thanked the volunteers, organized her few belongings, and stepped back into the city streets. The rich lady followed, maintaining a respectful distance, absorbed in thought. She realized that she had been given a rare opportunity to witness true human strength firsthand, and that witnessing it required humility, reflection, and a willingness to learn. As the evening approached, the city lights began to glow, casting warm reflections on the wet pavement from a light drizzle. The homeless woman found a familiar spot to rest, folding her blanket and setting her bag nearby. She watched the world around her with quiet awareness, knowing that her actions, however small, had ripple effects she might never see. The rich lady paused nearby, observing from a distance, feeling a mixture of awe, guilt, and inspiration. She had followed someone society often ignored and had discovered lessons about humanity, kindness, and strength that money could never buy. The homeless woman, unaware of the full impact of her presence, settled in for the night with a sense of peace and accomplishment. She had lived her day with integrity, compassion, and dignity. The rich lady, meanwhile, walked home slowly, her mind still filled with the lessons she had observed, contemplating how to reconcile her own life with the profound simplicity of the woman she had once tried to humiliate. She realized that understanding, humility, and change were possible, but they required action, reflection, and a willingness to let go of pride. As night fell, the city quieted, the streets littered with the day's remnants, and the lights shimmered in the darkness. Both women, so different yet interconnected by the day's events, rested in their respective spaces. One slept under a small awning with the cold pressing softly against her, her heart filled with quiet strength. The other lay in a luxurious apartment, her mind racing with newfound awareness, contemplating the nature of power, respect, and true influence. In their own ways, both had learned, both had observed, and both had been changed by the unfolding story of humanity. Kindness and the subtle power of dignity. The following morning, the city streets were alive with energy, yet the rich lady felt a strange hesitation as she stepped outside. She had thought about the homeless woman constantly since the previous day, and her reflection had left an uneasy weight in her chest. The idea of observing her again was both unnerving and oddly compelling. She had been confronted with a truth she had never expected, right? And her mind kept replaying the woman's quiet composure and acts of kindness. It was as if she had glimpsed something essential about humanity that her wealth and social circles had never allowed her to see. Meanwhile, the homeless woman prepared for her day, folding her blanket neatly and adjusting the few belongings she carried. She moved with practiced efficiency, each motion intentional and careful. Life on the streets had taught her to be resourceful, to remain aware of the world around her, and to act with kindness whenever possible. She did not seek recognition, reward, or admiration. Her actions were born from empathy, from a deep understanding that each small gesture could make a difference in someone's life. That morning, a young mother struggled to calm her crying child while juggling a bag of groceries in a stroller. The homeless woman noticed immediately and stepped forward to help. She carried the groceries to the mother's car, adjusted the stroller, and offered a comforting word to the child. The mother's eyes filled with gratitude, and the child smiled. The homeless woman smiled back softly, her heart lifted by the small moment of connection. These were the moments that defined her day, small yet profound. Acts of service without expectation. Across town, the rich lady followed at a distance, observing silently. She felt a mixture of admiration and guilt. She realized how often she had judged people based on appearances without seeing the essence of their character. The homeless woman had no need for recognition or status, yet her influence on those around her was undeniable. Each act of kindness created ripples that were visible, tangible, and meaningful. The rich lady could not deny the quiet authority this woman possessed. Authority born not from money, but from heart and integrity. As the day progressed, the homeless woman continued her path through the city. She helped an elderly man whose cane had broken, guided a lost child back to their parent, and assisted a street performer whose cart had tipped over, spilling instruments and props. Each encounter was handled with patience and calm. Passers-by noticed, and some paused to admire her actions. Recognizing the quiet strength that seemed to flow naturally from her presence, the rich lady felt her own inadequacies more keenly with each scene, her pride slowly giving way to humility. Around midday, the homeless woman arrived at a local shelter where volunteers distributed meals. She stepped in immediately, assisting in setting up tables, organizing food, and greeting visitors with a warm smile. Her presence brought a sense of calm and order to the environment. People who had come seeking help felt acknowledged, respected, and seen. Her actions were consistent, deliberate, and thoughtful. There was no need for authority. Her integrity commanded respect naturally, the rich lady observed from the doorway, unsure whether to step inside. She felt awkward, out of place, and yet drawn to the scene. She watched the woman move among the volunteers and visitors, mediating disagreements gently, encouraging collaboration, and offering quiet guidance. Each interaction was marked by empathy and understanding. The rich lady realized that she had never seen leadership expressed in this way before, a leadership that did not rely on fear, wealth, or social dominance, but on character and compassion. Curiosity and admiration finally overcame hesitation, and the rich lady entered the shelter quietly. She approached the homeless woman cautiously, unsure of how to begin. The woman noticed her immediately, but offered only a gentle nod, acknowledging her presence without judgment. The rich lady felt her tongue tie itself in knots, the usual confidence she carried in social situations absent. For the first time, she experienced the vulnerability of someone truly accountable to another human being, without the safety net of wealth or status. The rich lady spoke haltingly. I've been thinking about yesterday. I didn't expect. I didn't understand how you could remain so calm, so kind. Her words faltered, and the homeless woman listened silently, her expression patient and non-confrontational. There was no accusation, no scolding, only a willingness to hear. The homeless woman finally spoke. Life does not always give us what we want. People will be unkind, and circumstances can be difficult. But anger, pride, or resentment only weigh the heart. I choose to act with care, kindness, and dignity because it is the right thing, not because I expect something in return. Her words were simple, yet carried immense weight. The rich lady felt their truth strike deep, revealing her own shortcomings and insecurities. The rich lady looked around, noticing the environment that the woman had nurtured. Volunteers were organized, visitors were calm, and the atmosphere radiated a sense of community and respect. She realized that influence and power could take many forms. While she had spent her life seeking control, admiration, and social recognition, This woman demonstrated that true impact came from consistency, empathy, and integrity. The homeless woman continued her day, helping wherever she could. She assisted in distributing meals, organized clothing donations, and offered words of encouragement to those in need. The rich lady shadowed her, learning silently. Each act of compassion and patience left an impression, teaching lessons that no book, lecture, or social circle could provide. The rich lady began to feel a shift within herself, a growing awareness that humility and genuine care for others held more value than material wealth. As the afternoon sun began to lower, the homeless woman led a small group of volunteers to tidy up the shelter. She coordinated efficiently, her voice calm and instructive. The volunteers followed her guidance willingly, inspired not by fear or obligation, but by respect and trust. The rich lady watched, absorbing the scene. She realized that leadership built on kindness and consistency could inspire more than authority built on wealth, fear, or social hierarchy. At one point, a disagreement arose between two volunteers over how to distribute donated items. The homeless woman approached, listening quietly, and then suggested a fair compromise. Her calm reasoning and gentle authority resolved the tension effortlessly. The volunteers smiled, nodding in agreement. The rich lady could hardly believe what she was seeing. She had assumed that only social status and power could command compliance and respect. She was wrong. Respect born of integrity, empathy, and patience was far more enduring and authentic. By late afternoon, the activities at the shelter began to wind down. The homeless woman took a moment to sit, folding her hands in her lap and observing the people around her. She felt a quiet satisfaction in the day's accomplishments, knowing that she had acted with care and consideration. The rich lady approached, her steps tentative. She looked at the woman, feeling a mixture of admiration, humility, and an almost desperate need to understand. "Your actions today," the rich lady began, they make a real difference. I've never seen anything like this. I thought I understood life, but you've shown me something I never realized." Her voice trailed off, overwhelmed by the honesty and authenticity of the woman before her. The homeless woman smiled faintly, a gentle encouragement, but offered no flattery or praise. Her focus was on the work and the lives she touched, not on recognition. The rich lady felt a new sense of responsibility stir within her. She realized that witnessing such quiet power imposed a challenge on her own life. She could not return to her previous ways of arrogance and superficial judgment. She had seen that true influence came from character, and that actions rooted in kindness, empathy, and integrity had far more impact than wealth or social status ever could. As evening approached, the homeless woman prepared to leave the shelter. She thanked the volunteers, organized her few belongings, and stepped into the streets. The rich lady followed, keeping a careful distance, overwhelmed by the lessons she had observed. The homeless woman moved with quiet grace, her head held high despite the day's exertions. Each step carried the weight of experience, patience, and unwavering dignity. The rich lady, walking behind her, felt a strange combination of humility and inspiration. She realized that she had been given a rare opportunity to witness the essence of true character, and that this knowledge could not be ignored. Her reflections continued as she walked, pondering how she might allow these lessons to shape her own actions and choices in life. Night fell. The streets were quieting. The homeless woman found a familiar spot to rest, folding her blanket carefully and arranging her small belongings. She watched the city lights twinkle on, feeling a sense of peace. The rich lady, meanwhile, walked home, her mind filled with reflections on compassion, humility, and the unseen power of character. Both women, though worlds apart in circumstance, had engaged in a silent exchange that would leave lasting impressions on each other's lives. One had offered kindness without expectation. The other had learned to see beyond status and pride, realizing the true measure of influence lay in heart, not wealth. The city streets were quiet that evening, the soft glow of streetlights reflecting on the damp pavement from a brief afternoon rain. The homeless woman moved slowly, carrying her few belongings, her heart content with the day she had lived. Every encounter, every small act of kindness, had left its mark on those around her. Though most of them would never know the full story, she had learned long ago that recognition was never the goal. Compassion was enough. Her life, though difficult, was rich in dignity and purpose. Built from countless acts of empathy and courage, the rich lady followed at a distance, her mind restless. She had spent the entire day observing, learning, and reflecting. The quiet authority of the homeless woman, the consistent kindness she extended without expectation, had left a profound impression on her. It was unsettling and inspiring all at once. She had entered this day expecting arrogance and scorn to dominate, yet what she had witnessed was the opposite, a life shaped by patience, compassion, and integrity. She had never imagined that someone society overlooked so easily could hold such quiet power. As the homeless woman approached a small park to rest, the rich lady found herself stepping closer, a mixture of curiosity, admiration, and an almost urgent need to bridge the gap between them. She hesitated briefly, unsure of how to approach, but something inside her compelled her forward. The woman noticed her approach, her eyes calm and welcoming, without a trace of judgment. The rich lady stopped a few feet away, unsure of what to say. The words she had prepared in her mind dissolved in the presence of such quiet dignity. Finally, she spoke, her voice tentative. I wanted to say, I've been thinking about everything I saw today, everything you've done. I don't know how to describe it, but you've shown me something I've never understood before. The homeless woman listened, her expression gentle, allowing space for the rich lady to speak without interruption. There was no judgment, no arrogance, only openness and patience. The rich lady continued, I tried to humiliate you once, and I realized I was wrong. I didn't expect you to respond with calm, with grace. I see now that true strength doesn't come from wealth, status, or power. It comes from how you treat others, how you carry yourself, and how you face the challenges life gives you. Her words were halting, but filled with sincerity. The homeless woman nodded softly, acknowledging the truth in what was said, but offering no praise or flattery. Her presence alone carried understanding. The homeless woman spoke finally, her voice soft but firm. It is never too late to learn, to see differently, and to choose a better way. Kindness, patience, and integrity are qualities that anyone can cultivate regardless of their circumstances. They are the true measure of a person, more than wealth or social standing ever could be. Ow! Her words settled over the rich lady like a quiet revelation. They resonated deeply, striking a chord that had been dormant for years, moved by the moment. The rich lady took a tentative step closer. I want to help. Not to impress, not to show wealth, but to make a real difference. I've seen how you live with dignity, even when life is hard, and I want to learn from you and support you in any way I can. Her eyes were earnest, searching the homeless woman's face for some sign of acceptance or permission. The homeless woman smiled faintly, a small, encouraging gesture. Help comes in many forms, and it is always meaningful when it is genuine. Support, guidance, and opportunity are valuable, but so is understanding, patience, and empathy. If your actions come from the heart, they can change lives, including your own. The rich lady nodded, absorbing the advice and feeling a deep sense of humility and responsibility. She realized that true impact required consistency, care, and sincerity, not just wealth or status. The rich lady reached into her bag and took out a small gift, a token of her sincere intention. She handed it to the homeless woman, not with arrogance, but with genuine humility. The woman accepted it gently, her smile warm but restrained. Understanding the gesture for what it was, an offer of support, not condescension. The exchange was quiet, simple, yet profound, a turning point in their interaction. Together, they walked slowly through the park. The rich lady asked questions, genuinely curious about the homeless woman's life, her challenges, and the wisdom she had gained through experience. The woman answered honestly, sharing small stories, insights, and reflections. Her words were simple, yet layered with meaning. teaching lessons about resilience, empathy, and human dignity. The rich lady listened intently, absorbing every word, recognizing how much she had underestimated the value of lived experience as the sun dipped below the horizon. The city lights reflected on puddles, creating a shimmering mosaic across the streets. The homeless woman paused, looking out at the city, her eyes calm and thoughtful. "Life is unpredictable," she said quietly. "Sometimes it takes courage to face the unknown. Sometimes it takes humility to see what truly matters. And sometimes it takes kindness to change the world around us." Her voice carried wisdom that transcended her circumstances. Illuminating truths that wealth and privilege often obscured, the rich lady felt tears prick at her eyes. She had never encountered someone who embodied such clarity, compassion, and strength. She realized that the lessons she had been seeking in books, lectures, and social circles had been displayed before her. Quietly and consistently, in the life of a woman's society, often overlooked, she felt an overwhelming sense of gratitude and inspiration, a desire to live differently, to act with care and sincerity, and to use her own resources for meaningful impact. As night fell fully, the homeless woman prepared her small space for sleep. Folding her blanket carefully and arranging her few belongings, she moved with a sense of calm satisfaction, knowing that she had lived the day with dignity, compassion, and integrity. Her life was challenging, yes, but it was rich in ways that money could never buy. The rich lady sat nearby on a bench, reflecting on the day. Her mind and heart profoundly changed. She understood that true wealth lay in character, and that influence and power were most potent when exercised with empathy and care. The rich lady finally spoke again, softly. "Thank you for showing me what matters, for teaching me without judgment. I don't know how to repay you, but I will carry these lessons with me, and I will try to live them every day." The homeless woman's eyes softened, her smile warm. The best repayment is living well, with honesty, compassion, and integrity. That is the gift you can give the world and yourself. For a long time, they sat together in quiet reflection. Two women from very different worlds, connected by the simple truth of humanity. One had lived with privilege, the other with hardship, yet both had discovered a shared understanding of what it meant to live with dignity, kindness, and purpose. The city moved around them, oblivious to the quiet transformation unfolding in its streets. Yet the impact of that moment would ripple far beyond what anyone could see. Eventually, the rich lady stood, ready to return to her life, but changed profoundly by the encounter. The homeless woman watched her leave, feeling a quiet satisfaction, knowing that the seed of awareness had been planted. She had acted with integrity and compassion, and in doing so, had left an indelible impression on someone who had once tried to diminish her. The streets grew quieter as night deepened, the city settling into a rhythm of rest. The homeless woman arranged her small space for the night, the stars visible above the tall buildings. She reflected on the day with a sense of fulfillment, knowing that each act of kindness mattered, that dignity could not be taken, and that compassion could leave a lasting mark on the world. The rich lady, walking home through the illuminated streets, felt a transformation within herself. She understood now that true influence, true power, and true wealth were measured not by money, possessions, or status, but by the kindness, integrity, and empathy one shared with others. In that quiet night, two lives had intersected in a way that neither would forget. One had offered lessons through action, humility, and compassion. The other had received them with openness, reflection, and a desire to change. The encounter had shown that even in a world filled with inequality, cruelty, and indifference, the human heart had the capacity to recognize, learn, and transform. The rich lady would walk a different path from that night forward, carrying the wisdom she had witnessed, and the homeless woman would continue her life, unchanged in circumstance, but rich in spirit, leaving ripples of compassion in her wake.